All right, awesome. So before we kind of get started with the actual resume, we first want to talk a little bit more about the actual job description that you're writing your resume for, okay? It's very important to actually take a look at this job description, whatever you're applying to, because it's going to hold some really key information that you're going to want to integrate into your resume. So I've highlighted here the peer academic advisor position on campus. This came straight from their website and just literally a screenshot of the roles and responsibilities of this specific position. And I kind of took some time to look over the particular bullet points. And these bullet points are very detailed, but what I try to do is like extract the actual transferable skills that are associated with each bullet point. So if you have the ability to kind of look at your resume, take a look at the transferable skills that you have on your resume currently, and then take a look at the job description. What are the types of transferable skills? So these are skills that you can take in any job setting that is, there specifically on the job description. So for example, as a PAA, they counsel undergraduate students, they provide information to students. So what this is specifically communication skills. So this is the transferable skills. Whatever, if you're like a barista at Starbucks or you're a campus rep on campus, like you are utilizing communication skills, right? Another skill here that the PAs, or at least a responsibility, is serving as a liaison between administrative faculty and students, and just talking to a wide variety of people, obviously, and being that, professional self. So there we have it. Professionalism is another transferable skill. And then another responsibility is participating in training seminars prior to employment, participate in team development throughout the year. So what this emphasizes is being a team member and being able to have teamwork as a transferable skill. And then last but not least, I want to emphasize leadership as a transferable skill. So being just, a PAA or just having a leadership position on campus, this is something that you can certainly take on to the next position that you have, maybe outside of a campus or perhaps an internship. Being a leader on campus will definitely take you very far as well. So now that we've kind of broke down the actual job description, let's talk a little bit more about the actual resume itself. And then, I don't know, Patrick, if you have anything to add about job descriptions in general. We've definitely taken a look at a lot of those in our lifetime.
No? I think it'll probably come when questions come.
Okay.
Because I was pretty thorough on how to look at it. I mean, I guess, well, one of the things that you could say also is that when you are looking at job descriptions, sometimes the verbiage that they have in the job description would help, because if you're running a resume through like an automatic system where they're just submitting it through a computer, they might be looking for that particular verbiage. So actually, Krista, can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure, yeah.
So if you're looking at like some of the verbiage that they're using here, provide, maintain, offer, serve, convey, like those types of things are things that they might be looking for in a particular like computer-based system where they're just trying to see if it matches your resume, because people aren't necessarily looking at your resume anymore. They're just passing it through a system that's looking for keywords. So be careful about that too.
Yeah, that is such a big thing. Technology these days, kind of doing the work for many people, especially because they get so many resumes at any given time. It's just kind of an easy way to filter people out if they're not using the specific language that is in the job description. Yeah, so thanks for pointing that out, Patrick. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the first part of your actual resume. So this is the top part. Now the top part, I would say, is the most important part. You're going to want to put the most, important information that directly relates to your position or the thing that you want to highlight the most. Typically resumes are anywhere from 1 page to 2 pages. I would say right now as an undergraduate, I would stick with 1 page. However, there are some students out there that might have enough information to warrant 2 pages. There's also something called the curriculum vitae, also known as a CV. This is just a longer version of a resume, mostly used in academia, but today we're just going to focus on resumes, okay? So first things first is formatting. You want to make sure that you have professional formatting, nothing too crazy in terms of your font. It should be relatively like easy to read, so anywhere from 10 to 12 point font. And then of course, just formatting. I mean, there's very many different ways to format your resume. There is a very traditional way where you have all the dates on the right-hand side and the titles and the actual organizations that you work for on the left-hand side. However, you know, not to say that this is the only way to format your resume. However, I would say this is the most common and probably the most easiest to read and probably the format that many employers are used to. So here's an example of what that would look like. And then the next thing that you're going to be putting on firsthand is your name. So this shouldn't be too small. It shouldn't be too big, just at least twice as big as your normal font. And then you're going to be providing a professional email address. This could be your UCI email address, or maybe you have another personal email account that you use. You can use that as well. You should also be putting your contact information. So this would be your phone number. Some students also like to put their LinkedIn kind of address as well. That's something that you can certainly do. Some students often have like their own personal website or blog that they would like to highlight on there as well. In terms of address, I know we get this question a lot. Should I put my address on there? I think it's okay to put your city and your state. I think that's probably more common. Putting your full address is kind of, I guess not a lot of people are doing that anymore, unless you were maybe like relocating and it's important to kind of share that information. But I think city and state is plenty of information that they need at this point in time. And later on, they can ask you for your full address too. And then the next part, so this part here is called the objective. So really you're stating what your goals are, your desires. I do want to point out that objective is not required. You don't have to include this. For some people, it might make a little bit more sense. I'm often telling students to include it when they don't have much information to put on their resume at this point in time. So it's a very good, very much of a filler at this point, especially if maybe you're a freshman and you're barely starting college and you don't have much going on yet, or most of it's high school stuff, and you really can kind of broaden specifically what you're looking for with the objective. But if like you are having trouble finding space to even put things on your resume anymore, then it's okay. You don't need it. You can take it off. The next thing that you're going to want to highlight, and most typical, is the education. Some students like to put their education towards the bottom, and that's often common. As you get a little bit older and you gain a little bit more experience, you're probably going to be highlighting more of your actual jobs than your actual education. Or maybe, let's say there's a position that requires a master's degree and maybe you don't have your master's degree yet, then education could be something that you highlight at the bottom because you think your experiences speak out more to the actual position. But right now we're going to encourage you to put your education towards the top because that's something that you can easily connect with the employer, especially like if you're applying to something in Orange County and maybe the person actually reading your resume is a UCI alum, like that always kind of sparks up like, oh, you know, they're a UCI grad or a UCI student, so I know that they're top notch, right? And so on here, you can put your majors. So maybe if you're a double major, you can put both of those on there. Feel free to also put your GPA. I would say anything below a 3.0, you could just leave that off. No need to put that on there. You can also include specific courses that you've taken. So maybe you haven't had like too many internship experience. Like I would say highlight the classes that you've taken, or maybe specific projects that you've had in your classes that really connect with the specific position that you're applying to. At this point in time, well, I would say if you are a sophomore and up, I would say it's time to like start ticking all the high school stuff off, especially your high school education. If you're a freshman or incoming student, then it's okay to still have your high school information on there. For some of you, you might have attended a community college. That's still very important to highlight, especially if you received an associate's degree through that experience. That's something that you can certainly put on there as well. And then also, last but not least, any honors or maybe the study abroad experiences are also very important to highlight. Patrick, anything about this section that maybe you want to add to?
No, I think you covered this one pretty thoroughly.
All right, cool. Moving on. All right, so this is kind of your mid-section, getting to the bottom. So the next part is your professional experiences. You can also title this as work experiences as well, but these are the positions that you have had, hopefully like paid positions that you've had, like internships or even part-time jobs. So on here we have in management internship. So something super important to kind of keep in mind is you want to make sure that you put not only where you worked, but also the location of it. So you're going to see the actual city and state of where you worked on the right-hand side, as well as the year and the month that you worked as well. A common mistake that I always see students do is they put 2019 to 2021. That can mean January 2019 or it can mean December 2019. So there's a very big difference. There's a 1 year difference if you don't put those months. So that's very important as well. So now I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the actual bullet points, okay? So with your bullet points, you're going to want to make sure that you start off with a strong action verb. So what your action verb is the first word in your bullet point. So we have on here advised and corresponded. You see how, well, this is actually something that should be updated because it's actually in past tense, and it should be in present tense because the date here is June 2021. So we got to update that, Patrick. But typically things that have been in the past, so like let's say your internship ended last year, those should be past tense. Things that are currently present, those should be present tense, if that makes sense, okay? Now, with your bullet points, there are certain things that you're gonna wanna answer, okay? So first of all, you're gonna wanna answer specifically, what did you do in that particular internship in terms of your responsibilities? How did you do it? And what was the whole reason or purpose of that, okay? And if you're able to answer like those three things, then your bullet point is gonna be very solid. Okay, and it's also important to make sure that you are as detailed as possible. So one of the ways that you can make certain bullet points detailed is by quantifying. And what quantifying means is just adding numbers. So for example, in this bullet point, it talks about advising undergraduate students. So if you can try to pinpoint how many students did you advise as a management intern, you can put, I advise 20 undergraduate students per week. And that just provides additional more information for the employer. So that way they can understand, okay, are they comfortable in speaking with large crowds or, a lot of people at a time, or being able to prioritize different audiences as well. And then the next part would probably be maybe co-curricular experience. You can also call this extracurricular experience, or you can also have volunteer experience if you want to highlight any volunteer experiences that you've had. Co-curricular experience is more just any leadership positions that you have had, maybe not necessarily paid. Maybe these are more volunteer leadership experiences that you've taken on. So same thing with the bullets, making sure that you have a strong action verb. And actually with these action verbs, we'll try to send you a list of action verbs that you can use, but you can also simply do a simple Google search for action verbs, resume action verbs, and there's so many lists available that you can look up as well. One thing to note is you want to make sure your action verbs are different, or as different as possible. You don't want to say organized, organized, organized for every single bullet point, because then that doesn't really showcase the different types of skills that you have or the experiences that you've had as well. But with other co-curricular experiences, you can put maybe that club that you were involved in, or maybe you did you know, working at or volunteering at a food bank, for example. Even if it was just for a month-long volunteer opportunity or maybe a year-long program, you should still put all those experiences. They're all very important and still very relevant as well. Patrick, anything to add for this middle portion?
Yeah, this is the part where some of the titles could be a little bit different. So for example, professional work experience could be work experience, or um, something else that other people might want to put. Just understand that when you're actually writing down these different parts and you're choosing which titles you want to use, you use the ones that you think best represents you most, as opposed to just trying to follow a particular template. So that's something that you might want to start considering. Another question that we always regularly get in regards to what is considered professional experience or co-curricular / leadership / volunteer is where should I put my experiences? Because sometimes you have experiences that are paid, sometimes you have them that are unpaid. So is professional experience only paid experiences, or are they not? And really, it just kind of depends on how you want to organize it. Like one of the ways that I suggest students to organize their professional experience is one that's related directly to the career that they're doing, and then everything else that they're doing is co-curricular. Some people like to do it where professional experience only paid positions and then everything else is supportive. So it kind of depends on how you want to represent your resume to when you're sending it out to people.
Yeah. Another way that you can also do it is, let's say like, okay, you worked at Starbucks and you worked at Legoland or something like that. You could put that under like work experience, and then professional experience. Let's say you had 2 internships that directly relate to the financial internship that you're applying to now. That would be relevant experience. So that's how you can kind of also differentiate the two, relevant versus work experience. Yes, my random Legoland example. I'm like, oh, what else?
Yeah,
Another place, Knott's Berry Farm.
Saw my face there. I was like, Legoland of all places.
I know,
it is a cool
right?
place though, by the way, everyone. You should go.
All right, moving on. Okay, so this is the last portion of your resume. So this would be a really great spot for research experience. And I know that some of you probably don't have any research experience yet. That's okay. Maybe you've done some research projects or research papers in your classes. Like, you can certainly highlight that it's still research. You're still doing a particular project and trying to find answers to that particular project as well. So on here for research, for example, you can put who you specifically worked with, so the actual faculty member. If you don't maybe have any research, you can also do like awards that you've won. Another really great thing is specific skills. So you'll see like administrative skills at the bottom. This could be speaking a different language. Very important to put like what range in terms of how fluent you are in those particular languages. So for example, we have basic or conversational. These are good kind of descriptors to talk about how fluent you are in that particular language. You can also put any computer-based skills. Maybe you know, Photoshop, for example, if that's something that you want to highlight, especially if they ask that in the actual job description. For research, you can talk a little bit more about your laboratory skills or the actual research that you are doing. Gathered 16 research participants. That's a great example of quantifying, like we previously mentioned. If this was a CV, then you're definitely going to want to have more research experience in like the publications that maybe you have in the future, as well as any like other experiences related to like research. And with a CV, it doesn't have a page limit. So that's kind of one of the differences that there is as well. Patrick, anything to add for this particular one?
Yeah, speaking on CVs, which is basically the expanded resume you send for graduate school, I realized that this research thing doesn't actually have a title of what the research is that you've done. So if you do have a research project, you want to put the title in there. Some students also ask in regards to skills that you're going to be adding to the this section down here. What kinds of things can you also put in there in addition to that? Well, this is actually a good place for you to put those transferable skills that Carissa was talking about in the beginning of our workshop, because those are the things that you find commonplace throughout all of your different experiences, and you can just put them all underneath the skills, and you wouldn't need to worry about mentioning them in the other experiences, so that you can make a lot more detailed descriptions based on a specific thing to that job. You wouldn't want to be putting like, you know how to use Excel in every single job description when you can just put it down at the bottom of the skills, right? So it's a way to organize your resume to make it more concise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know I've seen also often students putting a section higher in their resume and actually putting summary of skills. So that is another area where you can also highlight your transferable skills if you want the employer just to see what your skills are off the bat. So that's also something that you can certainly do too. So we do have some time, a good amount of time for some questions, and hopefully you have questions for us. But before we get to them, and feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to include your specific resume questions, and we're going to do our very best to help you out in answering them. But I do want to let you know that we are available this summer. So like, let's say you have your resume and you'd like for us to take a look at it, we'd be happy to do so. You can just email your resume to us at ssarc.socsci.uci.edu, or if you'd like to have a Zoom appointment and we can go through it together and how to break it down, we'd be happy to do so. You can actually schedule an appointment with us on our website. And then we also encourage you to just follow us on social media, such as Instagram and Facebook as well. But yeah, we'll now be answering your questions. Patrick, do we have any at this point?
Yes. Okay, so the first question that we have is, I hear that you should copy and paste the job description into your resume and make the font white so people can see it or cannot see it, but the AI notices. What are your thoughts on that? There's a couple school of thought for that, right? First of all, you have to have the ability to know how to do that kind of thing. And it's actually pretty simple. You just have to make a text box, make it white, and put it behind the text. It's completely possible. The only thing is that if they do happen to have somebody who's also looking at it too, and they happen to try to find specific things that's not shown on your resume because it's in white and it can't be seen, they might be questioning like, how did this get past the system and whatnot. For me, whenever I had students apply to things, I've never actually advised anyone to do anything like that, but they've all been able to at least get through the interview, if not the job. So that's kind of like a thing that you might want to consider doing for yourself. Krista, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's actually something that I haven't heard before. And I think ultimately, like, the important part is your actual experiences and how you're communicating that to the employer. Whether you have that, you know, secretly in white somewhere or you don't, it's really a matter of like how you're communicating with the employer and how, you know, your fit. It's really all about fit at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Another question here we have on through our chat is, I've been told to exclude skills like Microsoft Office or Gmail because it is something that everyone should know. Is there any other experience that we can also replace with a bullet point in our skills?
That's a good question. And I think sometimes we often assume that, oh, everybody knows what that is. And I think that something that I've definitely learned throughout this kind of remote experience is that not everybody is on the same level of technology as we think we all are, especially, you know, with so many different, I guess, you know, different levels. And so I think like having Gmail or Microsoft Office, if it's specifically stated in the job description, like if it actually says we need you to know Excel or we need you to know Microsoft Office, then I would say put it in there, highlight it in there, especially if it says in the job description. If there are other things in the job description that is highlighted, like other programs, and maybe you know nothing about it, and hopefully you have some time to maybe learn something about it, I would say, you know, take an online course about it. Maybe YouTube it out and see if you can learn anything just to put on there. Like, you know, I kind of have a basic understanding of what this actually is rather than saying I have no idea what this is at all. Patrick, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, it's commonplace for particular jobs, like say, for example, marketing, where they're going to be giving you some kind of like test that's going to be actually looking at your ability to do these particular things in these programs. If you don't have it on there, I'm pretty sure that they would probably say like, oh, well, this person doesn't have it. There's no reason to test this person about it. So we're going to pass on that. So of course you'd want to try to put it on there if you can. If you have a minor, can you include that in it? Yeah, you can put it in the education section just underneath your major. Let's see here. tailoring a resume to a job they have no experience with. Oh yeah, this is a good one. When you're brand new, Krista, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So can you read the question again?
Tailoring a resume to a job that you have no experience with. So like changing job trajectories, I guess, or something
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah. So you're going to be wanting to like make your resume more, I would say, skills based. Okay. So there is such a thing called a skills based resume where you're not necessarily focusing more on like, I've had the same exact experience in another internship, but more of like, what are the transferable skills that's on this job description that are the transferable skills that I have? So perhaps the transferable skill that you want to highlight is, communicating with diverse populations. Then you can put on there, I've done this, this, and this, and this, for example. And so I think oftentimes when we look at a job description, we feel like we wouldn't have a chance in getting an interview. And we often think that we are not, I guess, are competitive enough for something like that because I don't have direct experience doing that thing. But if it's something genuinely that you are interested in and you want to challenge yourself and you want to learn more, then I would say identify the transferable skills. I think that's going to be the most important part. Patrick, anything to add?
No. I think that was pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good.
When are cover letters required and should they be a page long? Yeah, so there's a couple rule of thumbs that you can follow. So I'll tell you the general ones that I kind of explain to people. There's going to be 3 instances where you're going to have a cover letter. It's either going to be required, optional, or not needed. So if it's required, obviously you're going to be doing it. If it's optional, I would actually say do it because it shows the extra effort that's needed. If it's not needed, I wouldn't suggest probably putting it in there because they probably don't want to look at it. So it really just depends on whether or not they're going to be asking for it. But should it be a page long? I would say yes, because for the sake of being considerate of time and how long it takes to go through potentially hundreds of applications for one position, you want to keep it succinct. And if you do need help writing that, we're actually having a workshop next week about how to write cover letters. So consider joining that as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like, absolutely, if you have any opportunity to submit a cover letter, like, just do it. I think it'll help you stand out a lot more than someone who did not submit a cover letter at all.
Let's see here. For a law school resume, is it appropriate to add in activities done that isn't necessarily associated with legal activities like arts club, or should that just be excluded because it's not relevant?
Well, it depends. I think absolutely. If you have any other leadership experiences or just, I would say like, let's say you were vice president of that arts club, for example, that showcases kind of your leadership capability. And that's something that's going to be very important, definitely transferable in the legal field where you'll have to be a leader in that profession. So I would say absolutely, there are certain things that maybe you don't think they have a direct correlation, but they do. And again, it goes back to those transferable skills that we were talking about. Patrick, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's kind of, well, I wouldn't say common, but it's not unheard of where people from different majors who are not political scientists or somebody working in sociology or something to go through those, go to law school. Like there are people in humanities that can get into law school, even though they have a major that's not related to it at all. So as Carissa said, because depending on what your positions are in those other places, they could show a different aspect of your leadership or show you to be a more well-rounded person. So it's just something that can help you overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, especially in the medical profession, like if you're looking to be a doctor one day, for example, being able to highlight that, you have this humanities background and that you're a very well-rounded person, then absolutely very, very important to kind of include that too.
Okay. So we do have a couple, we have time for one more question. So we'll have this one be asked. Do you have any recommendations for listing successive summer internship dates at the same institution? Should it look like June 17 to September 17, 18 to 1919? So to make it clarified for everyone else, it's kind of like if you had an internship that you did one summer, then you reset, and then the next summer you had the same exact internship. At least that's how I'm understanding that question. There's Do you have an answer for that, Carissa?
Yeah, I guess just to clarify, is it just how to explain gaps in like the actual experiences in terms of years?
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at that question. It's like, say, for example, you were a lifeguard one summer, and then, you go you go through the entire year, and then the next summer you're still at that same job as a lifeguard, but there's a gap in between, like the 2 summer experiences.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I would just say summer 2019 and summer 2020, and that's kind of pretty much it. And so like and especially I think another question that we get a lot is, I've been in this position for a while, but then I got promoted to a different position. Like, how would I write that? And so you can have the organization itself, kind of the umbrella, and then underneath you can put, your current position, bullet points, and then your previous position, bullet points, and the dates that you've had that. If the positions are, I would say, probably too similar, then I don't think that you have to separate the two. You can just actually put like, these were my positions and these were my responsibilities. So it definitely depends on what you were doing as well. Yes.
Right. Well, that is all the time that we have, everyone. So thank you for that very great discussion on resume building. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be having a how to write a cover letter workshop next week, which we're going to be sending you information about in an email after this workshop. So you should be getting that shortly.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us in terms of resume basics. Take care.
Bye, everyone.